to make in the debate. And for me, my dear friend, I was very careful of giving him answers because, for example, when he asked me about is Allah Allah, I said yes, and then he said that you are contradicting yourself because you are applying the laws of logic on him. This is not fair, because it's like I said something. It's like, you asked me something, is royal royal? I said yes, and then you will tell me that you are contradicting yourself because you're applying the laws of logic. This is not fair, my dear friend, because first, if you want to discuss, if you, you know, if you want to discuss this, let's make it, a topic of debate. The laws of logic on God. It is not fair. It's like asking a question, I get an answer. Of course, God is God. Yeah, is God human being? Yeah, it is not fair, General, because I tell you what, I know what is in his mind, but he asked the question, is God God? I said yes. And then how could he say that I am contradicting myself because I am applying the laws of logic on God the Almighty? Yeah. It's like he asked the question, I gave an answer, and then he take from this answer something and he made a claim that I'm contradicting. How? Explain to me how. But if you, no, 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 General, it was his. I will tell you. Okay, I will tell you. No, it was his time to ask questions, so I couldn't ask him. No, 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 because General, it was his time to ask questions, so it was not for me to ask questions. Okay, so it's not a problem, but I was very careful in answering him. I know that all the people who were in here, most of them, they are his friends, so they know this is, let's say, the they try to use against the Muslims. Yeah, so that's why I'm saying it was not fair, General. It was his time to ask, and I couldn't. Yes, yes, my friend, because I know, General, that he was going to say that, and I didn't want him to say that. I am contradicting because it is not fair, my dear friend. First of all, if you want to discuss, the laws of logic, it should be, a topic of debate. No, 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 General. It's about giving an answer, and you know that the person whom you're going to answer will misuse your answer. Yeah, especially in front of people. You should be smart. For example, he asked me a question, and I said yes and no. You say I don't remember the question, but you can listen to the debate. In one of my answers, I said yes and no. Yeah, but say if you did truly, then you would point that out. No, but it was not my time to ask that, Junior. It was his time just, to ask. So I couldn't ask him. Yeah, it was like asking me, and I should just answer. But I think it should be a topic of debate. Yeah, about the laws of logic. How does laws of logic prove whether Islam or Christianity? I think it's a good topic of the debate, and I try to be careful, Gina, because I know this is their intention. Yeah, he expected me to say this, to say that I'm contradicting myself. Do you think it is fair to say that? Because he doesn't even know what are the laws of logic. Yeah, and I think it should be a topic of the debate to be fair. You are saying that I'm contradicting myself. Explain to me. I couldn't ask him, General. Yeah, yeah, sure, take the mic. Yeah. So the point is, General, I could simply ask him, explain to me how am I contradicting myself? Yeah, but it was not my time to ask. Yeah, that's the problem. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Abduruf, I've given you the link to the YouTube. So the latest debate, which should be between a guy named Mentality, L A Mentality, and Royal, takes place. And actually, oh, you saw it. You saw that debate. So you saw the whole thing where Mentality said that it's 100%. Oh, you saw the link, but you haven't seen the debate yet. So you haven't seen the debate yet because If I were you, I would check out that debate. That debate pretty much highlights the crux of Royalson's question, and LA Mentality understood it, and he basically affirmed his position in that. Actually, yeah, he's a Muslim. Yep, he's definitely a Muslim. Let me just get you a quote from him from that debate of what he said. He actually understood Roy's question, and then he stated the following. Let me just get it. No, that's fine. That's fine, Abdurruf. If I were you, I would definitely check this debate out, because I've never seen it so clearly put. You know, where Royalson's questions are very clear, and mentality is very clear as well, and he basically. Now tell me if this makes sense. So this is from Mentality, who is here it is. So Mentality said, this is around the 33-minute mark. So 33 onwards in the video. No. This is in the chat screen. You'll have to play it. He gets on the mic later on in the debate, and they have a crossfire. But around the 33 minutes, say about 20 seconds in, 33:20, you'll see LA Mentality say, I'm just typing it up. So Allah is 100% logically. Sorry. He had a typo there. So Allah is 100% logical, but it does not need logic. So, and I suppose when he says it, he means Allah. So, but it does not need logic to exist. The topic was basically this, the attributes of Allah. So like the exact same debate you had with Royalson. So Allah transcends. So this is what you believe. Allah transcends everything. Nothing is like unto Allah, according to chapter 112, verse 4. That means Allah transcends the properties of the universe, in which basically means logic, because the universe is constituted as logic. Because you're saying Allah created the universe, therefore Allah created logic. But if Allah transcends logic, that means Allah does not have the attribute of logic. And then Mentality understood this, and he basically says, yeah, it's completely fine. Yeah, the debate between you and Royal was, is Islam or Christianity rational? And it's pretty much on the same line as this, because in Islam, if you say Islam is rational, how can you say it's rational when Allah does not have the attribute of logic? That's the point Royal was trying to make. He basically says Allah does not have the attribute of logic, but it is logical for Allah to be 100% logical. So, Abdurruf, does that make sense? That's the crux of a Muslim mentality's argument. Allah does not have the attribute of logic, but it is logical for Allah to be 100% logical. So, if Allah doesn't have the attribute of logic, how can Allah be logical? It doesn't make sense. You can't be logical if Allah does not have the attribute of logic. Okay, okay, no worries. And then he basically then he also stated later on in the debate. Oh, sorry, my someone's gone and. He also said Allah does not have the attribute. Now, this is something I found really weird. He says Allah does not have the attribute of existence. This is mentality saying this. Royal then said that means Allah doesn't exist. Because according to mentality, if Allah transcends the attribute of existence, the law of non-contradiction, law of identity, those things, then Roy was basically saying, then you're an atheist. Allah doesn't exist. Um, so I'm just wondering, as another Muslim, do you actually agree with mentality's reasoning here? Okay, it's your mic.
Thank you so much, Jinel, for telling me about this debate. I will try to listen to it. But my dear friend, for me, I use simple language. I don't like to use these words like mortality. Use it's like confusing. Is Allah could exist? But I will have debate about this topic with Roy. Just convey to him my message. Okay, we'll discuss this topic. You know, about the laws of logic and existence of God. Maybe this is why the debate you have. Yes, I know. Yeah. Yes, General. First of all, the debate was going to be about this laws of logic on the existence of God. Okay, and then the debate changed, to which is Russian Islam or Christianity. Yeah, and so my friend, when it was his turn to ask me a question, he asked me the question: Is God God? Of course, God is God. He is not a human being. He's not. Yeah, and when I said yes, he said that you are contradicting yourself. It is not fair. You know why, General? Because with these people, my dear friend, if we will have an open debate about this topic, I would just ask him, my dear friend Oyo, could you please explain to me what are the laws of logic? And who made these laws of logic? What does these laws of logic say? This is how I'm gonna begin my debate, and I am sure, General, that he will not make any sense because he doesn't even know what are these laws of logic. So when he asked me the question, my dear friend, he used something by ignorance. This is what I didn't like, my dear friend. And then his friends they kept doubting me. It was not fair. And in a debate, when you give the mic to someone to answer a question, that's it. You don't need to dot him and to keep saying, "Oh, you are not answering." Yeah, he answers, and it's up to you to accept it or to reject it. For me, I try to be careful, my friend. I didn't want to. I know their intentions. I didn't want to give some direct answers. Yeah, I hope you got my point, General. Now about what mentality said, my dear friend. Again, I would just ask for my dear friend. First of all, please define the words that you are using. What kind of logic are you using? And then explain to me what are the laws of logic. Yeah, and who said these laws of logic? Okay, this is how I would start my debate. So we should at least agree on some definition in general. So I will not talk about such certain kind of logic, and we're talking about another kind of way of logic. Yeah. So I hope you got my point. This is how I would begin the debate, or this is how I would address this topic. It should be, that it should be that we set some definitions, yeah, so we can start upon these definitions to be fair, and to be more accurate. And what the mortality said, my dear, I think I should listen to the debate. And about the existence of God, they asked me the question. Sorry for taking the mic. When they asked the question after the debate, yeah, General, when Carol, she asked me a question after the debate. I'm not sure if I don't know if they recorded this part of Q&A session. She asked me the question: if God's speech is not like our speech, so how could people understand God's speech? And it was very good question. I liked it, and I said to her, I shared with her a clear Quranic verse, a verse from the Quran that says how the messenger they understood the message of God, the words of God. Yeah, there is verse it says that. Let me share it with you, General. So how of course God's speech is not like our speech. And God the Almighty, He sent to each tribe and nation a prophet and messenger among themselves with wonders, miracles, and signs. Each prophet was sent with the tongue of his people. With the tongue of his people, God the Almighty, He sent angels to be in between God and the messenger. Yeah. That was my answer for her. But general, they were like team. They doubted me so many times. They kept saying, "Oh, I'm not answering. I'm not answering." If it was someone else, he would just leave. Some people they appreciated my faces, because I didn't leave. I kept calm and maybe smiling in the way I talk. General. Maybe if you are at in my place, having a debate and voting you each time, voting you and say you are not answering, you are not. It is not fair, my dear friend. For example, the other day when you came to my, I didn't dot you. You took the mic, you spoke as much as you wanted, and then yeah. Yes, so this is the way how I will adjust I will adjust the debate, about this laws of logic. Yeah, because we should set some definition from which we can start the debate. Okay, because okay, take the mic, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, again, I definitely recommend you check out that debate. To be honest, I don't know if you will even agree with mentality, considering he is a fellow Muslim, but what he'll say, I think you'll then understand what Royalson's actually trying to get at. And what Carol said about the speech. Now, let me just see if I can understand what you're thinking. So, when she says speech, are you thinking how the vocal cords work? So when I create sound waves, for a certain frequency through my vocal cords, and the wind from my lungs, and the windpipe and all that, are you thinking in that context? So does Allah create sounds with his mouth? Is that what you're thinking by speech? Because I'm wondering if you see, this is where you could be talking past one another. So when Carol asks you the question about speech, is that what you're thinking? So because if you can say yes or no, then I can gauge and I can go to my. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, my friend. Yeah, we can have the discussion now from this question. My friend, let's begin with this, okay? Let me begin with this. You are living, and I am living, and God is the living one. Yeah? Is our lives like the life of God the Almighty? No, it is not the same because you and I we depend. Okay, okay. Sometimes, that maybe that was the problem with the people. Some questions it needs some explanation. If I say yes or no, maybe they would get it in the wrong way. That's why I like to be clear, my dear friend. Okay, not to give them chance to misuse the answer. Okay, like I said, your life and the life of God the Almighty is not the same. Your life depends on space and time. God, He is not bound by space or time. He is not bound by space or time, which means that He is a part of His creature, which means it depends on uh, space and time to live, to survive. God the Almighty, He created space and time. He created everything. No, no, hold on a second, Jim. Hold on a second, my dear friend. Okay, yeah, 1 second. Let me continue. Okay. So is your life like the love of God Almighty? Is not the same. You see and I see, and God the Almighty is seeing us. Is the sight of God like our sight? It is not. It's not the same. Yeah, it is not the same, General. God the Almighty, He sees everything. Yeah, He sees everything. So we cannot say that the sight of God and the sight of and our sight is the same. You know, you hear and I hear, and God He is hearing. He hears everything. Yeah. So we cannot say that the hearing of God is like our hearing. Yeah. So we say that, my dear friend, God there is nothing like into Him. Okay. God there is nothing like into Him. Okay. God there is nothing like into Him. To say that He have vocal cords, we cannot say that because this is applicable on human beings. Human beings, He sees and He cannot see everything. Yeah. God the Almighty, He sees everything at the same time. Yeah, he heard, he feels everything. So we cannot say that God has vocal cords. We say there is nothing like into him, my dear friend. So this is my brief um, comment. Okay, take the mic.
Yeah. So okay. So I'm glad you clarify that, because that is not what Carol is asking. Because Carol is not asking, does God have vocal cords? Does he have a throat in order to communicate? Does he have physical ears in order to, the eardrum, takes in the air particle vibrations in order to convert that into language, and. So yeah, we completely agree with that. So she asked, how would people understand his speech if he's not bound by space or time? Well, actually, she's not even asking that. She's asking what you just affirmed. You said Allah, or even what mentality in the debate said, Allah does not have the attribute of logic. He transcends the attribute. He transcends logic. I'll just say that. So if Allah has his very nature logic, then the very concept of speech. So what is speech? Speech is basically logic communication, language, syntax, grammar, everything that constitutes information that has a logical structure to it in order to communicate. Okay, it's not speaking about, can God speak the way we speak? No. You and I are intelligent beings because we are logically constructing sentences in order to communicate to each other right now over Paltalk. The computer runs on logical algorithms in order to generate the speech that you see. See, notice I'm saying speech. The speech through the computer itself. So that means this universe, the entire construct of this universe. Oh God, this bloody Benjamin guy. I'm just gonna block this guy 1 sec. I don't know. Yeah, it's some idiot. Anyway, so notice speech at its very essence is logic. Okay. So the question is, if Allah transcends logic, that means by his very nature he doesn't have the attribute of logic. Then the question is, how can Allah communicate at all? Is the question. You see, if you and I have an attribute of, say, in fact, let's just, I'm sure you speak Arabic, right? So, and you're saying the Quran was revealed in Arabic, right? Now, would you say that Allah communicated in Arabic through the angel Gabriel to Muhammad? Is that the belief that you have? I just want a quick yes or no. If that's basically so, like Arab, because I hear Muslims say that it's a divine speech, Arabic. Because okay, let me just so that I can just finish my point. So if it is Arabic, right? Well, notice Arabic is a language that has syntax, grammar, the basic rules of language. But Allah transcends because He doesn't have Arabic, the language of Arabic, as His attribute. He doesn't have logic as His attribute, so He transcends it somehow. That means He doesn't have the ability to even communicate in the language of Arabic that we understand. So then the question is, how can He communicate? And so then so notice that Allah is in a sphere over here, and I'll put Abd and Han in another sphere over here. Okay, so we are separated. Okay, and notice the right sphere. So Abd and Han has the attribute of logic, but Allah does not have the attribute of logic. I put the does not have as an exclamation point with the equal sign. So if Allah is going to, and I'll put Allah again in a sphere, if Allah is going to communicate to us, hey Arab Ismail, okay, I'll put that as a right arrow. If He's going to communicate to us, then in your belief system, Allah has to somehow communicate, so I'll put a plus sign, with Gabriel in order to get to us. But notice, if Gabriel is able to understand, now see how separate Allah and you and I are together, right? In the first instance, Allah is totally separated between the universe and Himself. But and the basis of that is we are in a logical construct. Allah is not. But Allah has to try and communicate to us. So in your belief, Allah uses messengers, which is the angels, in order to communicate to us. But then the question is, how can, if we can't understand Allah because Allah doesn't speak logic and a language, then how can the angel understand Allah? And notice it goes into an infinite regress. And not only that, but if you're saying that the angel was able to understand Allah, that would mean, so in this case, Gabriel, that would mean Allah is Gabriel in order to communicate to you and me. And again, if Allah is Gabriel, but then Gabriel was somehow transcendent to the laws of physics, and on it goes into infinite regress. So that means Gabriel is not logical. And on it goes. So here's the flip side. The Quran says that Gabriel did communicate, that Allah did communicate to Muhammad. He did reveal the Quran, because the Quran is written in a language that we understand, and so on. So then the obvious conclusion is that chapter 112 verse 4 is wrong, because Allah does have the attribute of logic in order to even communicate the Quran, which means then that the verse in Surah 112 is either completely wrong, or it's not even clear in its in its wording. It's not it's not describing the very nature of God. Now, in a Christian sense, and I'll pass the mic to you, by the way, I'm not going to hog the mic, but in a Christian sense, just to give you a comparison between your faith and my faith. So I believe God has the attribute of logic. But, and the Quran obviously is saying, no, he doesn't. And the reason why I believe it is because as is clearly mentioned over here, let me just change the words. This is just to show you the difference in understanding here, Abdurruf. Okay, so in John 1 verses 1 to 3, notice I've changed the word, like word, I've changed it to the Greek transliteration, which is logos. So in the beginning, the logos existed, the logos was with God, and the logos was God. He, the logos, existed in the beginning with God, and through him, the logos, all things were made, and apart from him, nothing was made that has been made. Now, logos literally means, in the Greek, logic. In the beginning, the logic existed. The logic was with God, and the logic was God, or God was logic. Every essence of this universe, every attribute stems from the God of logic. But in the Quran, Allah is not logical. That's the big dilemma we're having, Abdurrahman. That this is the crux of the entire discussion, all the debates that's been happening all these days. We have in the Bible, so one God is logical, but the other God is not logical. So we have a contradiction here. So the Christian God is logical, but the Islamic God is not logical because he transcends logic itself. So do you understand now basically this whole problem that hence all these, every time we seem to get together, we are always discussing this topic now. Like before, it wasn't this topic. It was just recently, I forget now who started it, but it was a recent, I guess a recent epiphany or something. But with that being said, I'll give you the mic.
Thank you, General. You talked a lot about the voice, but no problem. My friend, I know this about the logos. I tell you something funny, General. I know about the logos. A Polish Christian who lives in Canada, he was explaining to me that I asked him, what do you believe about Jesus? He said that he believes that he is the logos. Yeah, and the logos became Jesus. Is that right, General? Is that right that the logos became Jesus? This is that was his explanation to me that yeah, Jesus is before it was the logos, and then the logos became Jesus. And then he said to me that in the way that the logos became Jesus, it's like God the Almighty stopped being God. I don't know, but that was his crazy explanation. God stopped being God. I said to him, what do you mean by that? He said to me, God can do whatever he wants. But anyway, General, my dear friend, you talked a lot on the mic. So now I want to, first of all, my dear friend, explain to me laws of logic. Explain it to me in detail. So we have to set some definitions of the word logic, okay, of the word logic, because this word can be used in different contexts. But it's illogical forgot to stop. But no, no. Anyway, so General, take the mic. Explain to me in detail what do you mean by the laws of logic. Okay, what does the laws of logic mean? Go ahead. explain in detail, okay, to you? Because any missed details, it may be used against you. Okay, so I wanted to explain it to me in lot of details. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so Abduruf, another way of saying it is this. So the laws of logic is basically laws of thought. So, and here's, uh, I'm getting this from the Britannica Encyclopedia just because, so that you know that I'm not making this up. So the laws of thought traditionally, the three fundamental laws of logic, which is the law of contradiction, the law of excluded middle, and the principle of identity. So basically, you have uh, what philosophers have now described the universe to be in the context of where you can't have contradictions, you can't have non-identities, and yet exist at the same time. Things like this. Now, as an umbrella term, the laws of logic, this is how you and I exist to begin with. So, for example, General Han, if I was to contradict the law of contradiction, so if I was to go against that specific law, that would basically, I would then say, General Han is Arabismo, who's in this room. That's a contradiction because General Han obviously is not Arabismo. You see, when we apply the laws of logic to simple statements, we can see which one's correct and which one's not correct. So if I was to say I am Arabismo, clearly that's wrong because I am not Arabismo. We're two different persons. We're not the same person. That's just a very basic example of the laws of logic. Now, notice the very fabric of the logic parameter, the very idea of even having that understanding, the very thought process, the fact that it even exists in order for us to make in order to make up these laws, to understand them, actually, it should be more clearly stated, requires that the laws of logic have to be eternally separate from this universe. So the laws of logic have to transcend the universe itself, because how can, and this is the problem for the atheists, how can the laws of logic come into being from nothing? You see, that's the big dilemma atheists have. How can, another way of saying it, how can axioms have logical parameters if there is no God? Do you understand that, Abduruf? In an atheistic context, if there's no God, how can a logical universe spring into being from nothing? Okay, so that's point one. Now, point two, that presupposes that if there is a God, okay, I'll get to that, Abduruf. I'll get to that in a second. If the laws of logic, notice that the universe is entirely logical, right? And I've just explained to you in an atheistic context, the very nature of the universe presupposes that God has to exist, because a logical universe cannot come from nothing, from no God. So that means, point number two, the laws of logic in this universe presupposes a transcendent mind, logos, which is basically logic. So in that context, God, therefore, is logical. right? Now, when you say the laws of logic are thoughts, man-made way of thoughts, no, not at all. The thoughts of man are reliable, are only reliable because of the eternal laws of logic. The very, the very fact that you and I are able to have this interaction, this discussion, presupposes the eternality of the laws of logic, because without them, we wouldn't even be able to have the faculty, right, of knowing what is right and wrong. I'll give you an example, Abdurruf. Say if I told you that 1 plus 1 equals 3, okay? Notice I'm not being very logical there. In fact, I'm being illogical, okay? So if I said 1 plus 1 equals 3, General Han is being illogical. But notice the very premise of being illogical, right? So the very fact that Han is illogical requires that the laws of logic exist in order to refute the very nature of that statement, that being 1 plus 1 equals 3. So how do you, Abdurruf, how do you know that 1 plus 1 equals 3 is wrong? How do you know that it's wrong? Because you're using the laws of logic in order to refute that. That's how you're able to go, yeah, that's wrong, because 1 plus 1 equals 2, not 3. Notice your reasoning. So now you're saying Allah transcends logic. That means, so in an Islamic, now this is coming full circle back to Islam. So if Allah does not have, yeah, Rice, Muslims believe that Allah does not have the attributes of logic. So if Allah does not have the attributes of logic, that means Allah cannot determine if 1 plus 1 equals 3 is wrong. He cannot determine it because he doesn't have the, you know, the basic laws of logic in order to know that this is wrong and that's right. Anything can go. 1 plus 1 could be pi, and that could either be wrong or right in Allah's eyes. Exactly, Abdurruf, you got it. You got it, Abdurruf. How you just said, General, what language are you speaking? Is it English or Spanish? And how do you know that? Exactly, you got it. So Abdurruf, how do I get it? How do I know I'm speaking English? Because I'm using the laws of logic with respect to the language of English to know, and I can differentiate between the laws of logic with respect to Spanish and the laws of logic with respect to English. I differentiate the languages because the very nature of differentiation, right, requires the laws of logic. So how can Allah communicate? You're saying he communicates in Arabic. How does he even know what Arabic is if he transcends the laws of logic? You see, so your question about how do you know between English and Spanish, that question actually is applied to Allah because he won't know. That's the point. If Allah is not the source of logic, and because he should be logic if he's the source of logic, then there's, you might as well be an atheist, Abdurraf. So you got it, definitely. You hit the nail on the head. By the way, who here is an atheist, and who here thinks Genesis and science is not compatible? Anyway, I'll pass the mic and so you guys can chat.
Well, can I have a mic check? Yeah, I'm sorry, John, about you're heavily confused, and I take it that you've been reading Matt Slick's article too, because he himself is heavily confused. But there is no such thing as law of logic. There's no such thing as laws of logic. The law of excluded middle, the law of identity, and the law of non-contradiction. These are not laws of logic. There is no such thing as laws of logic. These are known as the three classical laws of thoughts. These thoughts have to do with reasoning. If so, then so. Um, and you tend to use the principles of logic, but these are not laws of logic. Matt Slick confuses these and calls them the laws of logic, and then they say they have to be conceptual by nature, and therefore they have to. This is the they have to be conceptual by nature. There has to be a mind. God. I'm a philosophy student. That these are not referred to as laws of logic to begin with. These are simply the laws of thought, how human mind uh, that uses based on principles to begin with. But there's heavily problems with people who argue argumentation because they thought transcendence the laws of logic that we can communicate with laws of logic. This conclusion is heavily flawed. First off, is transcendence laws of logic, then by definition, we cannot know anything about how this thing communicates. We cannot know if it can communicate or if within the serial I wanted to add to this particular topic, about your mic.
Thank you for that, Aziz. Allah bless and reward you. So, Arabismo, maybe later, if you want, I will, or you will have a debate about this topic with Roy. The other day they invited me to this, to such a debate, to such a topic. But yes, but the topic of the debate changed to whether Islam or Christianity is. I had debate with him, Arabismo, and they recorded the debates, recorded. It's a lot upload on YouTube, but unfortunately, Arabismo, they noted me billion of times, They noted me so many times, Arabismo, In a debate, you let the speaker answer, and then it's up to you to accept or to reject. Yeah, they're not, they kept doubting me and saying you are not answering, you are not answering. But anyway, my friend General, listen, okay. Uh, Otherwise, if all you have are insults, are you meaning? No, I don't insult time. I don't insult people. Okay, I kept calm. I smiling. So Alhamdulillah. So General, what? Because he talked a lot of. Okay, Jesus, he was sent, you know, with the language of his people, my friend. Okay, God revealed to him the guidance to convey to it, to his people in his language and in the language of Jesus. Okay, okay, and he sent Abraham to his people with the language of his people, my dear friend. Okay, so God the Almighty, he sent to each tribe and nation a prophet and messenger among themselves with the language of their people, so they can understand the guidance. Okay, It doesn't mean that the language that God the Almighty speaks is Arabic or Aramaic, or how did God do it? Very good question. Welcome in. Yeah, I am answering you generally. Okay, there is a beautiful Quranic verse that says, let me paste in text. يكلمه الله من وراء الحجاب من ورائه. One second, my friend. Beautiful Quranic verse. Okay, I'm gonna paste it in the text. And that was my answer to Carol, but they don't like, I answered and it's up to reject. It says, and it is not for any human being that Allah should speak to him except, except, except by revelation refers to two objects and not to three objects. Why this number, this form, or this shape? Yeah, why it refers to two and not to three?
Yeah, Abduruf, sorry to dot you. Okay, you hit the nail on the head. So let's. Sorry, Rice, by the way, if I'm jumping you, but I really need to highlight this. So I asked you, does Allah know that 1 + 1 = 2? And then you asked me, well, how do I know that it is 2, right? So I said, well, the law of logic tells me 1 + 1 is 2. But then you're saying, but I'm agnostic on that. I don't really know if 1 + 1 = 2. Why can't it equal 3? Why can't it equal 11? Why can't it equal pi or Euler's number? Or here's why, Abduruf. Because if you are a theist, that means since God is logical, that means 1 + 1 = 2 because of God. That's the whole point. That's the very premise of the logic that constitutes beyond the space-time fabric of this universe. God is the one who has designated the parameters of logic to the fact that 1 + 1 = 2 and not 3. The very fact that you and I are even having this discussion is because God is logical. Now, if Allah is the true God, but Allah is not logical, that means the universe is not logical. That means you and I can't even have a discussion according to the properties of Allah. But in a Christian context, since Jesus is God and he is the Logos, and according to the Greeks, Logos means rationality, logic, etc. That means I would expect the reliability of science to work. I would expect scientific endeavors to take place because it's based on the fact that I have a God who's logical, because he's the one who's created logic. And because he is logic, he's the one who's brought it about via his very essence. So why the 2 refers to 2 objects and not 3? Because it's to do with identities, Abduruf. So you have one identity plus another identity, and that makes 2 identities. That's just a simple mathematical axiom. If you're talking about Boolean algebra, so you have one true statement plus another true statement equals 1, for example, but that's Boolean algebra. Because then you're saying that one identity plus another identity equals 3 identities, and obviously that's not correct. You can't have 3 identities from 2 identities. You see, now notice, if you're saying, why can't it be 3, you're basically then ruling out the laws of logic, and you're basically saying, I don't care what it is. 1 + 1 could equal 5. So basically 2 identities equals 5. That's what you're saying. 2 = 5, or 2 = 3. Does that make sense? No. 2 = 2. That's the law of non-contradiction. Do you see that, Abdurrahman? The law of non-contradiction says that 1 plus 1 equals 2, which equals 2. Yeah, exactly. When is a door not a door? A door will always be a door. You can't have a non-door from a door. And again, it depends on the context of your logic parameters. So either if you're going to be talking, because I exist and I tell you that I am a general because the laws of logic apply, because the laws of logic exist in order for me to say that I am the general. Do you get it? If the laws of logic exist and you're saying Allah is not logical, that means Allah does not exist. Do you see the logical deductions are made there? How set the laws of logic? Why they set it in such a way? Oh, who set the law? Who? God. Because God is logic, according to a theist position. So if God constitutes logic, then whatever we experience in life is because God is logical in that sense. We didn't create the laws of logic. No, they're not man-made. So Abdurrahman, okay, here's another ramification of that statement. Okay, so you're saying laws of logic are man-made. Okay, this is what you're saying. That means if Allah is not logical, that means man is logical and God is not logical. Does that make sense? I mean, to any person of faith would look at that and be absolutely, they would be slapping their heads. How can man be logical and God not logical? That means man is more logical than Allah. If these laws I'm reasoning with you on, if they are man-made, then you're basically saying man is logical and Allah is not logical. That means, and I'm not laughing because I'm not being rude here. That means the Quran is a man-made document, because Allah could not have made the Quran because he's not logical, but logical men wrote down the Quran. So that means Islam is man-made. Christianity is man-made. Anything in this life is man-made, not God-made. Anyone else in this room that's been listening to me speak, have I erred in any way here, or am I making logical sense here? I just want to know that. I hope I'm not going crazy here. Has it, at least RYZE, if you're listening, I think you're an atheist or a agnostic, but just from the deductions I've stated. Yeah, exactly, Jeff7AU. So that means our DNA is man-made, clouds and wind and weather is man-made, and yet the laws of logic apply to the very fabric parameter of this universe. The laws of nature, basically. Abdurrahman, Abdurrahman. So you have, if God is logical, that means logic is eternal. That means when the universe was created a finite time ago, with the parameters of it being logical, because it came from a logical being, right? That means the laws that constitute the universe come from from an eternal logical mind. God made the laws of logic in the universal context. God, because God is the laws of logic. So from his very essence, yeah, he made the laws of nature because he's logical. The very attribute of God presupposes the laws of nature. No. Oh no, Abdurruf. You see, this is why they were dotting you, Abdurruf. This is why they were dotting you. You've just said, okay, can you even read what you're saying? You just said God made the laws of nature and man made the laws of logic. So that means man is the creator of eternal logic. So are you saying man is God? I don't think you're thinking this through. What you might be saying, Abdurruf, is man has developed the definitions in describing the eternal attributes of logic, is what you're saying. Because man is a logical being, because again, God creating a logical being will obviously then think about definitions. So man has developed the definitions in describing this metaphysical property that we call logic. That obviously is not created by man. So Abdurruf, question for you. Did man create metaphysical parameters? Is man the creator of the metaphysical properties of logic? The answer is no. Why? Because man cannot create metaphysical things. How can a physical being create metaphysical properties of this universe? It doesn't make any sense. Actually, Rice has been waiting, so I'll give him the mic and then I'll let you take the mic, Abdurruf.
Fundamental principles which cannot be always used. Okay, General, my dear friend? Okay, possible. Go ahead.
Yeah, considering that I'm a mathematician and a physicist, so Abdurruf, do you understand mathematical infinite class sets? Do you understand what Brouwer was trying to get at when he rejects it? Do you know what the law of exclusive middle is? No, but okay. So the law of excluded middle. Let me just get you the definitions for you here. So it says, in logic, the law of excluded middle, or the principle of excluded middle, is the third of the three classic laws of thought. It states that for any proposition, either that proposition is true or its negation is true, meaning you can't have a middle ground, basically. So here's, and maybe this will help time us for 300. So the law is also known as the law or principle of the excluded third in Latin, yet another Latin designation for this law is no third possibility is given. So you can either have one or the other. True is true, false is false. You can't have true is false. All right? Now, if you read carefully what Brouwer is getting at, it says, who do not admit their use in mathematical proofs in which all members of an infinite class are involved. Brouwer would not accept, for example, the disjunction that either there occur 10 successive sevens somewhere in the decimal expansion of n or else not, n being Wait, is that an n or is that a pi? I'm pretty sure that's an n, because that would not make sense if it's a pi. Expansion of n meaning any set number, or else not, since no proof is known of either alternative. But he would accept it if applied, for instance, to the first 10,100 digits of the decimal, since these would in principle actually be computed. So what he's getting at is that the law of excluded middle is redundant. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It's redundant. It's not necessary. It's not applicable in the context of an infinite set of numbers, because then you will never have it's one or the other. It can be anything, is what he's getting at. Unfortunately, though, and this is why physicists don't really like mathematicians, in the universe, purely theoretical axioms, mathematical axioms like basically infinite set theory, are not applied because they're just exactly that. They're just infinite set theories. They don't actually apply to the real world. So here's another from Wikipedia. It says mathematicians such as L.E.J. Brewer and Aaron Hayting have also contested the usefulness. Here's the irony of the whole thing: the usefulness of the law of excluded middle in the context of modern mathematics, in infinite set theory and so on. So again, Abderoof. Notice that you have these three basic laws, right? These are classical laws of logic. In a modern mathematical context, note that math, right? Math presuppose logic. So notice that we're using logic to determine and modify and develop what you would title man-made definitions of logic. But notice the word of, definitions of logic. That means logic is an eternal property. That it's metaphysical. It transcends space-time. So whatever tools that we use to describe it, whether it's mathematics and so on, you're correct. They're man-made because they're tools to describe what's eternal, and that is this logic that pervades space and time. But for you to say Abderoof, but you're not being clear enough. That's the point. For you to say laws of logic are man-made, that's wrong. Let me correct what you're saying. This is how you should say it. The definitions of the laws of logic are man-made. Because man has defined what the laws of logic are based on their observation, falsification, application of the laws of logic. That means the laws of logic exist prior to any sentient, I'll say a hominid in this case, but a Homo sapien. Yeah, exactly. It's like arguing, do the laws of what makes an elephant exist? Yeah. So, Abderoof, you have to be very careful with your wording here. So, it's just showcasing to you the fact that laws of logic are eternal. The definitions are man-made. Therefore, where do these eternal laws of logic come from? That's the question. In a theistic context, God is logic. But you're saying Allah is not logic. So that means the universe that has logic intrinsically as its parameter that means the universe is more logical than Allah. You see, there's a huge problem here. Okay, it's your mic.
General, my brief comment is I share something with you, not my own work, I research from a scholar who doesn't agree with some certain ways of thought, okay, certain ways of deducting ruling. And so, general, how could you say that these man-made laws are eternal, while this scientist, for example, he rejects some of these laws and he says that it cannot be applicable on some branch of science. Prima, go ahead.
Yeah, but Abduruf, I already clarified with you that there's a difference between the definitions that are man-made and the laws of logic themselves. So the laws of logic are not man-made. The definitions are. God didn't use the English language to describe the law of non-contradiction. The law of non-contradiction is just is, because that stems from God. He can't contradict himself. That's part of the law of non-contradiction. But man, being made in the image of God, is able to then define and deduce these laws in his own language, whether that's English, Arabic, Latin, Greek, Hebrew, Akkadian, Ugaritic, whatever the language. You're failing to grasp the distinction between definition versus the actual thing, and that is the laws of logic. Now, about the scientist, about Bova, I already explained to you that he didn't really reject it. The Britannica article actually explains it for you. In an infinite set theory, which is a purely axiomatic mathematical construct, which ironically is based on the laws of logic, you happen to have no law of excluded middle. It doesn't apply. But here's the thing. We're using the laws of logic in order to say that. So are we destroying the laws of logic? No. In the context of Allah, we would never even be able to criticize or even have the ability to even know the difference between infinite set theory and the law of excluded middle and so on. Do you get what I'm saying, Abduruf? Okay, it's your mic.
Thank you, my dear friend, General. What is the problem, General? Is that maybe you think that we know everything, and that is the problem. Do you think that these laws are applicable in all aspects of life? That is not true, my dear friend. Again, maybe you are taking the mic trying to explain to me, but you are not explaining anything, my friend. I said to you, my friend, that these laws of logic, these laws of thought, they were set by some scientists, okay? Let's say some scholars who said ways, this way of thinking, how to deduct rulings, how to understand things, okay? But and then they are not applicable in all aspects of life because some scientists, some mathematicians, or some physicists, they cannot apply some of these because in somehow it's contradicting, the field in which they are studying. So we cannot say this is not for the truth and it's applicable in everything. We cannot say that. I shared with you a passage, not my own words, my friend. Okay? So, okay, take the mic.
Yeah, but Abduruf, where did I already explained to you there's a difference between axioms, infinite set theory, and say physics. Do you even understand the difference between the two? Okay, you know that. So what what am I missing here? All right. Uh, uh, Come up on mic and then give the mic to Reese.
Raise my sorry for jumping on you. The point which I'm trying to make, is that science is the is developing, and yeah, every day we learn that we don't know anything. Okay, and so, my dear friend General, these laws of logic, these laws of thought, they were made by some early scholars, some early scientists. Okay, now science developed a lot of, and in many fields of science like physics or mathematics, there is a need, to make new laws of deduction, yeah, certain new laws and ruling and some new definitions. Okay, because the necessity of such field. Okay, so we cannot say, my dear friend, that these laws of logic are eternal and applicable in all aspects of life or in all scientific fields. So I hope you got the point, Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just be very quick. Yeah, I'll just be very quick, Rice. Abiruf, you failed to realize what you just said. Yes, it is true that scientists are making new definitions as science progresses. Guess what? It's still the laws of logic. It hasn't changed. The laws of logic still apply even when new definitions are developed. No, because the very parameter and fabric of what logic is still is eternal. It that doesn't change. Our definitions change. And again, when I say change, I don't mean a particular definition is now completely redundant. No, a definition could be modified. It could be expanded upon. It could be more efficiently, developed as time goes by and as new research comes about. Yeah, I just explained to you that in a mathematical axiomatic context of infinite set theory, you don't have the law of excluded middle. That doesn't mean that the law of excluded middle is redundant now. A, 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 a system, a mathematical system of infinite set theory is still based on the laws of logic. Yeah, rejected. Why? Because it does not apply in infinite set theory, but it does apply in everything else. I don't understand why you're not getting that. No, it has nothing to do with it not being eternal. All right, no, let me pass the mic to Reese.
I guess it's, I can say more about this.
Uh, Thank you, Riz. General, listen to me, my friend. I know that these laws, listen to me, okay? Listen to me. Yeah, for the scientists, for example, rejecting some of these laws of thought, it doesn't mean that they are wrong. It just means that they are not applicable in all aspects of science. Okay? And the point, my point is that these laws, we cannot say that they are eternal. Okay? They still just for in some fields of science, but you know, they are not applicable in everything. Okay? Okay, Jimmy? I hope you understand what I'm saying. Okay, for example, this scientist, this mathematician, he goes against this certain laws of logic. Yeah, because these laws of logic are not applicable in mathematics, for example. Okay, but it doesn't mean that these laws are wrong. The point is that, my dear friend, is that these laws are not eternal, which means maybe to what I don't know what do you mean by eternal, but what I understand is like eternal means applicable in everything. Now, my dear friend General, you cannot apply this, for example, on the equation of in quantum mechanics. Yeah, for example, you know, where are you right now, General? You are in the United States. Yeah, you cannot be in the United States and in Algeria at the same time. Yeah. So, my dear friend, here you cannot apply, you know, the laws of logic or the of identity on this quantum mechanic. How can an electron be, you know, into place at the same time? You see, generally. So, just you know, I mentioned this specifically, and thank you, Riz. I was going to mention this before you did. Yeah. So, general, my friend, the laws of logic are not applicable in everything. Okay, they are not eternal. If you mean, you know, by eternal that they are applicable in everything, you are wrong. Maybe you mean something else by the word eternal. You will tell me on the mind. But the point is that they are not applicable in everything. Okay? And so, my dear friend, how could you apply it on God the Almighty, General? Okay? Because an atom is an atom. What is the atom? In its place, in X place. How can an electron be in two locations at the same time? You see, generally? Okay, you might go ahead.
Yeah, Abduruf, not to be pompous, but do you have you ever taken a quantum mechanics course, and have you actually utilized the mathematics associated with quantum mechanics? For example, do you know what the wave function is? Student in geoscience? Okay, so if you're a student in geosciences, have you studied radiometric decay rates of the Earth, of uranium, potassium, thorium in the crust of the Earth? Yeah, it's a geological field. It's part of. You should have studied why tectonic activity takes place and why you have a molten core and so on. Have you studied it? Have you studied radiometric? All right. So that means, with respect to quantum mechanics, you must be familiar with quantum mechanics, where quantum mechanics is used with respect to radiometric decay rates, right? I am going to address. That's why I'm wanting to be on the same footing with you. So, have you done quantum mechanical decay rates? Do you understand what quantum mechanics is? All right. Explain to me the quantum mechanics behind, say, a uranium isotope decaying. All right. Go ahead. It's your mic.
General, just between brackets, okay, study in geosciences, especially in petroleum field, okay, and more precisely in petroleum field, okay. You know, geology is a huge field of science. The point is that, general, you can, I don't claim to be that I have studied quantum mechanics in detail. I don't claim to be physicist because, you know, quantum mechanics is part of physics. I don't claim to be physicist, but I have some knowledge about it. But my dear friend General, I think I don't need to be We don't need to be mathematicians, to talk about mathematics, for example. So I gave you the example, the famous recent discovery that how can an electron be in two locations at the same time? Okay, so these laws of logic are not applicable on quantum mechanics, for example. Yeah, it doesn't mean that laws of logic are wrong, but they are not applicable in every field of science. Okay, General. So that's the point. Okay, go ahead.
So it doesn't obey classical logic, but it does. And it also obeys a superset of classical logic, which is quantum logic. So that's great.
Yeah, Rice, actually, you hit the nail on the head at the end there. Also, Abdurruf, notice the law of identity is not contradicted because it's the same electron that happens to be positioned in two places at once. But here's the thing, Abdurruf. When you take the wave function and you define or you calculate a probabilistic position of the electron, that's where you can actually get a specific location of where the electron is at any one given moment. So yes, quantum mechanics says that there can be non-locality with certain objects, but notice the object is the same object. There is, if in quantum mechanics, if the electron that's in two places at one time, if it's an electron and a positron at the same time, then there's a contradiction in the laws of logic. But that's not what we see. So even that's why I asked you to explain to me the quantum mechanical nature of, say, radiometric decay, because again, the laws of logic actually apply very well, as Rice just stated on mic, even in that context. So, but anyway, guys, I have to head off. So Abdurruf, if you can be very quick on mic, and then I'll be closing the room. All right, do I have a clear mic? That's the end of the recording. Testing, 1, 2. Jay, are you in the room? Firefly, are you in the room? Hello, anyone? Hello? All right. Jay, bro, I'm gonna PM you. Ex Gamer Julian, I have a question for you. Are you a concordist? Do you believe that Genesis was written a concordist? So God revealed, well, he basically worked alongside the cosmological ideas of Moses' day. Hey Jay, can you hear me? This is not live. Ex Gamer Julian, you don't believe in the Bible?